Peter, when do you usually arrive here? Just curious, for work. Or
Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks for waiting while we met in our executive session. As a reminder, let's see. Members of the public who do wish to view our meeting online may do so using ActonTV's YouTube channel found at the top of our agenda. As always, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on ActonTV's website at actontv.org. And thank you very much to ActonTV for recording and hosting our meetings? Yeah, meetings. My welcome is to say welcome and then move us into public participation. Per our school committee policy, members of the public are invited to speak for up to 3 minutes. We will dedicate a maximum of 20 minutes to public participation. Speakers must be recognized by the chair before speaking. The committee does not typically respond to comments during public participation. And as a reminder, this is the only time this evening that the public will be invited to address the committee, so please come forward for items that are both on and off the agenda. I know there are some folks here who wish to present to us. Beth is going to turn the microphone on. Please come on up and give us your name when you are about to present.
Hi everyone. We're going to be talking about the state of our tennis courts and our case to help fix them. So my name is Rishi Desari. I am a junior at ABRSC and I will be the co-captain of the varsity team this spring.
Hi everyone, I'm Mira. I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm on the girls varsity tennis team. So many cracks have developed over the past years in our AB high school and the RJ Gray. And we were informed that the cracks were going to be fixed in fall of 2022 and last summer, but nothing has been done so far. If we don't act now, we fear that our courts are going to be in the same condition for our upcoming tennis season in the spring. So we created a petition to help raise awareness for this cause, and we've gained over 250 signatures, and people have left comments on our petition. Most of our signatures are from Acton-Boxborough committee members and everyone in our community, and everyone wants to make a change.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm a junior at ABRSC, and so I'm going to be talking about some of the reasons we want to fix our courts. So first of all, courts are supposed to be changed every 4 to 8 years, but it's been much longer than that since the AB courts have been fixed. And the cracks on the court, they alter the ball trajectory and also mess up players' footwork, which also lead to pretty major injuries, because if you get your foot stuck in a crack, it could lead to you to roll your ankle or sprain something. And then also these courts are not only used by the varsity and high school boys and girls tennis teams, but they're also used by all Acton-Boxborough residents of all ages. So it's important that we get these courts fixed to make sure it's a safe space for everyone to play tennis.
Okay, so did anyone here watch the US Open? All right, so the winner of the women's side was Coco Gauff, and kind of like in honor of her winning, USTA, which is US Tennis Association, has dedicated $3 million to help fix tennis facilities like all around the USA. So if we apply now, we might be able to gain some funding for that, which is pretty good, pretty substantial. And how it works is you can apply for category 1, 2, or 3. Category 1 is like typically the lowest. You can get a max of $5,000. Category 2, you can get a max of 13 to 25K. Category 3, you can get a max of 25 to 40K. And so application, it's just a bunch of information, and I'm sure we'll be happy to help you with that, but it also requires some information on your part, administration's part. So if we apply now, we might be able to get some funding, which obviously really nice. So in conclusion, most of us are USTA players that play in tournaments year-round, not just during the season, and we take a break from these tournaments to play on our high school team because it's such a fun team environment. We like winning awards for AB, and just getting the courts fixed will overall help us play better, help us do better, so we'd really appreciate if we can get some help on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well prepared and presented. And thank you. Just so everybody knows, we also did receive an email from this group highlighting both the need and some of the optional funding that's available. So thank you. Anybody else here to speak for public participation? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the superintendent's update. Peter.
All right, thanks, Adam. So, a few different things. One, I'll just highlight, I don't know if any of you were around this past Monday, but the Acton-Boxborough United Way hosted its Community Resource Fair. This is an annual event that they do. This year they did it right in here because we're now co-located together. It was just great to be able to walk through that fair and see how ABW is able to connect the whole variety of community resources and networking throughout the community. And it really just reminded me of this idea of our focus on, sense of belonging for all of our families and our students this year. And I just wanted to highlight that they had done that. It's one of the reasons we chose to partner with them for their vast network of connections that they have in the community. And we just want to make sure that we continue to get the word out about the resource center that we have and all of the resources available to, students and families in the community starting this year. It's also October, and that means it's National Principal Month. So as part of that, we have decided to highlight each of our school principals on social media over the course of the month. So we have, done some profiles of each principal, and we're starting to push those out on our district Facebook page, our Instagram page, and also our LinkedIn profile so that we continue to gain some traction and continue the positive messaging. But really, principals have probably the most complex job in education right now, trying to balance all of the different needs of kids. And, it's an incredibly hard job to do. And we are so fortunate to have just absolutely fantastic principals in all of our schools across the district. So we want to continue to do that. So hopefully you go on social media, give the principals a little bit of love. I know they appreciate it, and, promote that and keep the positive mention going. I also want to take that opportunity to introduce, you will see we have someone new over at the staff table over there. Sophia Roy is one of our two fellows working in our district this fall. She's completing her doctoral program at Harvard in education, and so we are so fortunate. We have her and one of her colleagues, Alia Katerna, who is also doing some work with us. In the district. They, part of their program also gets them their superintendent license. So this is, gathering their internship hours over the course of the district. But Sophia, one of her small projects that she did for us was actually to reach out to our principals and do some interview questions for them for that social media work that we're doing. But one of the projects that Sophia will be focused on this fall, we have been talking a lot about trying to build an educator pathway to help increase the diversity of our workforce. We're actually headed to UMass Lowell tomorrow to meet with their education department about thinking about kind of the intersection of early college credit for high school students who may want to continue on into the education field. And how we could do that for educators, but also maybe think about our, classroom assistants and special education assistants as another pathway, and thinking about, helping to support master's programs for that population as well, so that we kind of build our own pipeline for our education workforce. Sophia is going to do some work in that for us. Alia is also going to be working on a project, and she's thinking about how we can kind of expand STEAM opportunities also at the intersection of early college, and thinking about, continuing to engage students as they progress through the system. So we're very excited to have them both here. Welcome, Sophia, and, glad to introduce you to the committee. I will also highlight, we put this out on social media and I'm sending out tomorrow in the superintendent's update, but we wanted to highlight for the community a lot of the work the high school has been doing and continuing to do over the last couple of years around course leveling. The high school is doing a lot of work to really rethink how to have more students have greater access and opportunities to study advanced level coursework, but also make sure students have a broader range of learning and social interactions that better prepare them for today's world. And so they put together a website to help educate students, families, community members about what that work looks like. It talks about, the goals of the project, the vision for it, gives some concrete examples of that work in progress. It will provide research to support the work they're doing. Basically just a lot of information to be able to share with community members based on their level of interest in the work. They're also engaged in trying to do some student presentations over the course of this month and help students understand what we're doing with it. We will be coming to school committee and having the high school present coming up in a few weeks. So we're excited to bring them in. And then Adam and I host our community coffees, and we've decided to do a very topic-specific community coffee with the high school principal, Joni, around this topic. But rather than it be a presentation, we're actually doing it as a discussion group for families who want to just come in, talk with us in a more informal setting around the work, ask some questions, but also engage with each other, quite honestly, and just be able to talk through what we're doing with course leveling. So we'll be including the link to the website in that, as well as information about the community coffee. I also want to highlight on October 8th, which is this weekend, we yep, that is this weekend. It's still Thursday. Diwali Fest is happening over at the Sargent Memorial Library. That was started last year as a way of engaging more of the community and bringing community members together to understand kind of Indian culture within the community. It was an awesome event to go to. I had an opportunity to visit some of the booths, talk with people there. I would highly encourage you to go over for a half hour at least, or an hour, experience it. It's a great way to connect with the community, but that is this Saturday, October 8th, from 12 o'clock to 4:30 at the Sargent Memorial Library in Boxborough. October 15th, next Sunday, we're also active. At 2 p.m. in the upper gym at the high school is the kickoff of the ADL Anti-Defamation League's Walk Against Hate. It's being run through Congregation Beth Elohim here in Acton. We are a co-sponsor for that, and we're just really proud to be able to work with Congregation Beth Elohim to put that on. It starts in the upper gym at the high school, and then it's a 1 mile walk over to the new field over in West Acton Center, where there'll be, a very short presentation there before, kind of dispersing. So we would encourage you as school committee members to please join us at that event. We know we have a number of student groups, staff participating in that, but we certainly want to have a strong presence as a school district. And that's it for me. So, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Happy to answer any questions, too.
Questions?
Or debate if necessary.
Go ahead, Becca.
Can I just add that Oktoberfest had to get rescheduled, so we're looking at having listening sessions, having a booth then for that on the 14th?
That's correct, yeah. I'm going to come back to that when we get to our school committee goal update. But thank you. Other questions, comments? Wonderful. Okay, we are going to move on to our guests and presentations. So we have a multilingual education update. Maryann Young is here to present. Welcome, Maryann.
All right, as Maryann is coming to the podium, I'll just introduce her. Maryann Young is our multilingual coordinator for the district. If you have been following multilingual education for a long time, it was known as English language education or English as a second language. Even before that, we wanted to take a more strengths-based approach, knowing that we actually have a large population of students in our district who are multilingual, and we think that's an asset. So we retitled English language education to multilingual education starting last year. So, this is, I just want to highlight before Maryann talks, this is one of our fastest growing segments of students in the school district. Maryann and I met yesterday, and, she updated me and said, oh, geez, the memo's a little old. The number of students I recorded there has changed. It's now 484. And then I was talking to her right before, that was yesterday afternoon, by the way, and I talked to her before the presentation. She said, actually, it's changed. It's 488. So 388, sorry. Sorry, not that big of a change. But we're also still screening students. So this is an important presentation for us. It's something that we want to make sure that you're aware of, this group of students. Not only the amazing work that the educators do to support students, the strengths that our students bring, and some of their life experiences and how that enriches our district, but also some of the services that, you know, we need to make sure that we're providing in order to provide an adequate and appropriate education for all of our students. So, Maryann, I'll let you take it from there.
So first, thank you all for allowing me to come and share these exciting, I think very exciting developments in our multilingual community here. As Peter said, we've seen an incredible amount of growth over the past 2 years. We're up 62% from where we were in August of 2022. And this does not even capture the full picture, because what happens every year is in May, we exit students who have achieved English proficiency according to the state standard. So last year we exited 63 students. And then as of now, we're still above the number that we were at last year, plus more. So we're certainly growing, and we're growing by leaps and bounds in all of the different areas of the district and all of the different grade levels. This is just a slide to illustrate the changes in some of the languages that are spoken. So we still have a great diversity with over 50 languages spoken throughout our community. Each different color line represents a different language. So we have Oria, we have Tagalog, we have Romanic, and languages such as that, but we also have a growing Portuguese and Spanish population, and we've also seen a large increase in our Russian speakers, and that includes people from both the Ukraine and Russia who speak Russian. We've also started to see some students from different parts of Central and South America, which are new this year, which is really exciting. So we have students coming from Peru, we have students coming from El Salvador, all new and different places that we're excited to be learning about. This slide here shows the distribution of students, and the reason why this is important is because historically, Blanchard, Conant, and Gates had our largest multilingual populations, but as you look at the pie now, it's much more evenly dispersed, our population of students, meaning that there aren't any schools in the district really that aren't seeing this changing demographic and being able to grow and learn from these students. But this year, one of the most striking changes was at the secondary level. So the next slide will show you what I'm talking about. So in 2021 to 2022, we had 19 multilingual learners at both R.J. Gray and the high school. But right now, we have 44 multilingual learners at the high school, which is a dramatic increase from what we had previously. And R.J. Gray, their numbers also continue to increase. So the reason for the increase at the high school is both that we're getting more students at the junior high level that are then moving up when they are fairly new within their first or second year of being in the U.S., and that we are also having a larger number of students who are entering the district at the high school level. And we've also had an increase in our students with limited and interrupted education at the high school level, which has been both exciting and challenging at the same time. This is a slide that's similar to one I showed last year. This shows the distribution of proficiency levels in our ML population. And right now we are at an even 50-50 split as of today when I entered the last numbers. And what the significance of this is the amount of support that the state recommends for individual students. So for students who are at levels 1 and 2, the state recommends 90 minutes of English language development, and for levels 3 and 4, it's at 45 minutes. But as these numbers continue to increase, the majority of the students that we see are coming in at the lower proficiency levels. So that's an important change. And this also is showing how this is impacting individual schools. So the blue color is the number of foundational or level 1-2 students, and the orange is the number of transitional students. But you can see that in most schools, it's 50-50 or even a little bit higher than that in the percentage of foundational students. Also looking at staffing, these different proficiency levels play into how we place teachers, because you could have a higher number of multilingual students, but if they are at a more proficient level of understanding English, they need less support than the foundational students. So that's something else also to understand. So right now we are at 15 ML teachers across the district. Blanchard has 2.5, same at Conant. We have 1 teacher at Douglas, 1.8 at Gates. The person that is 1.8 at Gates also works at the preschool, 0.2. We have 1.8 at McCarthy Town, because that person also goes over to RJ Gray in the morning. We have 2 teachers at Maryann, and then that explains the 1.2 at RJ Gray. And the high school, fortunately, we are up to 2 teachers there. So that is where we are. Our model is an SEI model, so I would guess that people might have heard that term, because SEI is also the term that we use to talk about the licensure requirements and the endorsements that teachers need to work with multilingual students. But what that means for program models is that the students are placed with teachers who are SEI endorsed, who should have the skills and knowledge to scaffold content according to proficiency level. And then they also receive English language development support that focuses on language development alone. And there is 2 different models at the elementary school. So for foundational students, newcomers, and students with interrupted education, we try to pull them out into classrooms where we can focus on filling in the gaps for language acquisition or transferring knowledge that they have, so that we can build those foundational language skills. And then for students at the upper proficiency levels, we try to do some push-in services, so we're scaffolding language at the same time that content is being introduced. We also do a lot of collaboration and consultation with general educators, trying to help them support students, because the SEI endorsement really only covers strategies for transitional students. And as we see more foundational students come in, the need for that collaboration is increasing. But we have been doing a great job so far in supporting these students, and they're doing quite well. So at RJ Gray, because of the way the schedules can work at the secondary, there is a separate pull-out block for English language development for foundational students that meets the 90 minutes of service time, and English credit is given. For transitional students, they also receive the DESE recommended service time of 45 minutes, but they receive elective credit, and the reason for that is that they are also taking a general education English course where they are receiving their English credit. And again, because of the interplay between the shared students and teams, there's a lot of collaboration happening between the general education teachers and the multilingual educator over there with scaffolding strategies and looking and sharing WIDA can-dos and such things like that. At the high school, we also have a separate class for foundational students that's a 90-minute pull-out block with an ESL teacher where English credit is given. For the transitional students, we have a great collaboration that we started last year that worked very well with one of the English teachers from the English department co-teaching along with the ESL teacher a 90-minute block. And the reason for this collaboration was to bridge the transition from going from an English language development class to general education class, but also, and kind of more importantly, to build the capacity of the English department in learning how to scaffold and support these students. And then we also added, when looking at de-leveling, a writing class that is an elective class for former English learners, so that we can give them that extra support that they will need going forward. Additions this year are ELD World History and ELD US History. That's two classes that cover the same requirements as World History and US History, but do that with a ELD focus with content and language objectives and appropriate scaffolding. And these count for history credit, and that also gives us another block of language support. And in biology, we are co-teaching a biology, or actually two sections of biology, where the ELD teacher is pushing in to support and co-plan with the biology teacher, again, to build capacity and also to work on really supporting a co-teaching model. And then the other thing that I'm really excited to share is, even with our numbers increasing at the pace that they are, our staff and the general education teachers that are supporting these students are doing a tremendous job, because we are way above the state average for students that are making progress, with 67% of our students making progress and 27% attaining proficiency and being able to exit from multilingual education. So that's really great. And then I also wanted to share some of the monitoring tools, and this is just kind of a sampling. Students, when they first arrive, are screened with the WIDA screener, which is a DESE-approved screener for newcomer students. That gives us a general proficiency level in the 4 language domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So we have an idea for placement. After that is done, from an ML standpoint, we monitor continuously with rubrics that are created by WIDA, which is the organization that kind of is at the forefront of English language development in the country, and then also is the one that DESE uses their product, the Access Test, to be able to measure student growth annually. We also look at district-wide assessments that are given, such as DIBELS, the iReady, different formative and summative dynamic assessments given by teachers, and then a team approach at looking at results, because a lot of results are impacted by language acquisition. So the goal is to always have an ML teacher at the table when we're looking at data, so that we can look at the impact of all of the different components of a child's background when we are looking at assessments. And then we look at other things that are, I call them success metrics, like dropout rates, grades, placement, how many students do we have in honors or AP classes at the high school level? Do we have students that feel like they belong, that they're involved in extracurricular activities? And then we also look at referrals to special education. So are we being disproportionate? Make sure we're looking at all the different things that we need to look at before we make referrals. And one other thing that we're doing this year that's really exciting is that we're looking at curriculum from a whole bunch of different lenses. So we have partnerships with Jen Faber for DEI, and Heather Stouck for social emotional learning, and Jen Truslow for special education, and Deb and general education, to look at curriculum as we're introducing it and try to see the intersections between what strategies we can add for multilingual and special education students, and how to interweave the content of DEI and SEL, because all of these things are part of everything that we teach. So if we look at it as a whole and then encourage teachers to support all of these skills going forward, we really get at what's the most effective and best teaching strategies. So that's another thing that we started this year that I'm really excited to be participating in. And so then we come to the budget. and thinking about what the change in the population means in terms of programming and supports that are needed. So right now, in the majority of our elementary schools, we are seeing students more than we did last year, and that's great. But we are still not at the recommended level for DESE service time. That doesn't mean we're out of compliance. We're not, because it's a recommendation. It's not a law legal requirement. But it is best practice. So we would like to get as close as we can to 90 minutes of support for foundational students. And we are averaging around 60. For transitional students, the amount that we would like to get to is 45 minutes per student, and we're averaging around 30. And that's just based on the numbers of students in the building and the time that we have in a day. So we would love to have more staff at the elementary level so we could get to meet those requirements. The secondary level, we are meeting our service requirements, but the caseloads are starting to become very large. And the high school, because of all the different subjects and content areas, works best when we are doing co-teaching so that we are making sure that we're not causing more gaps by pulling students out of core content, but we're also making sure that they're able to access it by scaffolding the language and introducing what are good teaching practices, as we're going forward. And then we have SLIFE students. So right now at the high school, there are 4. It's too small of a number to create a whole separate program, but it is something that we need to look at when we're allocating staff. And just to give you perspective, 2 of these students enrolled very recently, so I can kind of combine some factors and put together what a profile might look like. So think of a newly arriving student from Haiti who doesn't speak English, who last was in school in 6th grade and is now 17. So that's what a SLIFE profile is looking like at the high school for us, and there are at least 4 students in that category right now. So that means we're looking at trying to fill large gaps, and these students are incredibly capable and have a lot of worldly knowledge that can be used to help them close these gaps, but it takes a lot of skill to be able to see where the intersections are and to be able to support them through the process. And then kind of as a necessary kind of implication of all of the different languages that we have is that our interpretation and translation budget is going up and up and up. And we are doing a very good job, I think, this year, better than in the past, at making sure that we do have all of the translation and interpretation services in place, but we are seeing how quickly that's impacting the budget that we have remaining for the rest of the year. And then lastly, professional learning. So as I said, SEI courses usually cover transitional levels, but with the increase in foundational students, it would be really nice to have some money allocated to be able to train teachers and how to work with that population and be able to use all of the assets that they bring in the most productive way. So, thank you. And does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Maryann. So
Sure.
We'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes on questions. And please don't feel like you need to give us all of your information in the response. We want to try to get to as many questions as the committee may have as possible. So we'll start with Becca, and then we'll go to Tori.
Hi, thank you for all that. I did have questions as you went, but then you answered them, which was great. The only question I have left is, are we assessing student stress and the impact that, not speaking a language, and then especially at the high school, having these high expectations, and how is that being managed?
Well, I think through the intersection of all of these conversations that we're having about how to interweave SEL supports along with ML curriculum and along with other core content curriculum, we're getting at some of those skills as we're teaching. There's also a lot of preliminary type so there's a SLIFE interview that's like a background interview about different things that students are given upon arrival to see whether or not they're a SLIFE student, but that gives us a lot of information, and with that information, we would collaborate for sure and share with any service providers for mental or behavioral health that is, necessary for support. And also the Resource Center is a huge help here because they are helping and taking over some of the legwork for the wraparound support that our teachers used to do kind of independently or with the school social workers. So that has been another really important piece. And they're really great at collaborating. We're actually having a multilingual family night on October 18th here, and they're coming in there so that the rooms will be connected, and we usually have a pretty good turnout. So it's going to be exciting to see the families interact and learn kind of more of what's available.
Maryann, thank you so much for this.
Sure.
I had sent a couple of questions ahead of time, and you did a beautiful job of addressing all of them. So I'm left with actually probably not a thought for you, but maybe a thought for us. It feels like when you take a look at the budget formulas for Chapter 70, they just kind of go, you have X number of people in this category, you get Y amount of money. What little research I did before joining the school committee and now listening to what you've said, I feel like a lot of the complexity and the scale of what's going on here is different than some of our surrounding communities. And I'm wondering if we don't monitor that, and then maybe with our folks who kind of have the lead for talking to our legislative liaisons, et cetera, we may need to encourage people to rethink what the funding model looks like. And I'm also wondering if maybe we can figure out how to track how much of this is state funded and how much of this we AB are picking up on our end. So probably not questions you can answer, but things that are knocking around in my head. And if you can let us know if like the scale up piece is getting really painful,
I can let you know very, an overview. I don't have any of the details, but I know that there isn't any Chapter 70 funding being used right now, and that most of the funding for our program is coming out of the district budget. There is some small amount of Title III funds, but I think that just pays for my position.
Okay.
And it doesn't go beyond that.
Well, there we go then.
There also is not a lot of funding available right now. There are not a lot of grants through the state and other sources. I do think we are kind of progressing probably more quickly with growth than some of the surrounding towns, but nationally and throughout other parts of the state, we are definitely on par. It's a national thing that is happening. It's not just an AB thing, but we are moving faster than some of our other communities in this area.
Can you just say more about what you mean, we are moving faster?
Meaning that some of the surrounding communities that I speak to in some of our professional practice groups haven't seen the same volume of growth. They are seeing growth too, but not at the same pace. Because we're a suburban community. The places that are seeing the most growth are the urban areas.
And we're being successful, which means
I would expect
successful. Word is getting out. So kudos, and we're gonna have to figure out how to handle that.
Vikram and then Yanshin.
I just want to say I thought it was an extremely excellent presentation. Thank you very much. To know about how this is being implemented is really, it's really wonderful. I second Tori's concern here, or statement that that we can't underestimate the importance of having children have proper education when it comes to language, because we're really proud of the excellence of the Acton-Boxborough School District, and this is a key component of that. If we have kids coming in and not really being able to learn properly because of language deficiency, that's really going to be a large problem going on. So I think it's something we want to revisit in terms of budgeting.
Just to expand, one of the things Maryann and I have been talking about, and Deb and I have been talking about, she talked about kind of the increase in SLIFE students who have had interrupted educational experiences coming through, particularly when they have to enter at a secondary level. It can be really challenging for them. And we've seen some communities that have already kind of been on that wave. And unfortunately, what they're seeing is a higher level of high school dropout and non-completion because students don't see a pathway toward graduation. And so, it's making us have to, really think differently about what types of programming we might need in our high school in order to help students have a successful pathway to graduation, but also to prepare them for all sorts of a range of opportunities, workforce development, vocational training, things like that, we traditionally have not had in our school. And, if we don't think about that ahead of time, we're going to probably see some outcomes that we're not so happy with.
My apologies to Yanshin, but I'm going to insert my question now because it's actually about SLIFE students. So, Maryann, you gave us an example of sort of a student who we're seeing. When we have someone comes into the district at around 17 years old, how long can we support them for? And what do we take them to? Do we take them to a certain level of proficiency? Do we take them to a certain age? To Peter's point, we don't want them to drop out, and there are a myriad of options for them, but how long can we provide that support?
So legally, the age is 22. For ML students, the same as anyone else. The considerations that we have to look at when we're placing students is that SLIFE students are particularly vulnerable emotionally, and if we place them too far below what their grade level is, that also increases the dropout rate because they feel like, it depends on the student in this situation. What I'm thinking of is like if we have someone who completed through freshman year and then they missed 2 years and now they should be a senior. If we put them back to freshman year again, which some places do, that increases the dropout rate because they feel like they've already done this, and there's also an emphasis on different values, one of which might be earning money to help support a family. So when we're looking at alternative pathways, I think that's a really exciting way to go. What I've learned is that the most successful programs are when students see that their experience is valued and that we're basing their education on their experiences and we're able to use those. So programs that have support for filling in the gaps, but also show a way to move forward, which might not be the traditional way that a lot of AB students currently move forward, would be something that's exciting. Like, how many students do we have that know how to farm? I'd say a very large amount. How many students know how to fix things and work on engines? There's another large amount, and they're most successful when we use those strengths and incorporate math concepts or other concepts, or have them see a way to continue in those types of professions successfully.
Hi, Maryann. Actually, we first spoke when my own son test himself into ELL program, even though he only speaks English. He just didn't feel like talking that day. But he had a really good experience in the program. He was a kindergartner, and I remember we had a conversation. So I have 2 questions. Number 1 is that, are we able to offset the cost of translation services by utilizing artificial intelligence and tools as such? And the other one is multilingual family and I going to be in person this year, or is it still virtual?
Okay, so we are working, Deb and Peter and I and some others are working with someone to see whether or not they might be able to combine a whole bunch of different types of very successful AI programs into translation. So that we would be able to translate documents and even go so far as, having a program that recognizes nuances from different parts of the world that speak the same language but might have different colloquialisms. So that's something that we're investigating and trying to find out more about. We want to make sure that whatever we use is accurate. So we're taking some time, but we've already started preliminary meetings around that, but that's translation, not interpretation. So that's the other piece where we're looking at different solutions and we're trying out different things. There are ways to partner with the United Way for volunteers, but there's also training that DESE requires. So we have to look at that and see, what the willingness is to take some pretty intensive courses. But they're starting to open up a little bit in terms of who's allowed to be an interpreter, where it had to be a certified agency. Now there are pathways for citizens, but they have to also take classes and commit to doing that. But so it's starting to open up a little bit, but the parameters aren't really clear yet. So DESE has sent out guidance saying this is coming, but we don't know what the courses look like. We don't know how much time they'll take, things like that. The family night is going to be in person, so we're moving this year to trying to do as many as we can in person. And with the support of the United Way, we are allowed to use volunteers for their program to support families in interpreting and understanding.
Leland.
Thank you for the presentation, and in particular, thank you for the kind of data from points in time previously and then to now. That's really helpful. Could you tell us a little bit about how communication with families is going and kind of looping them into this whole process of like supporting students holistically and making sure that we're scaffolding everything?
Sure. So we communicate with families in a couple of different ways. And again, these are things that we're investigating and trying to look at better tools for. But right now, for email communication, we use Bright Arrow, which automatically translates into whatever language a family completes on the home language survey. We also have a contract with a company called Lexicate that does translation, but also interpretation. So for things like open houses, we can contract with them to have interpreters available. They almost operate like an Uber. You tell them what languages you need, they find someone. It's virtual, it's not in person, but it's fairly quick. If you need someone, on demand, if someone comes in, we're able to do that. And then for these things like open houses and things like that, they can simultaneously stream. And we've done as many as 3 languages, but I think their capacity is larger than that, and that is what a lot of the surrounding communities are using as well. But we're working towards better solutions where it can be more in person and less dependent on technology and on the format of the presentation, because it's hard to live stream if it's a presentation at the beginning and then people are moving to classroom to classroom to classroom. But to fill that gap, what we've been doing is asking for student volunteers from the high school to come down and walk with families to different classrooms. So there are ways that we are doing that. But anytime, a family needs interpretation for any type of school-sponsored event or meeting, Lexicate can provide the service can provide an interpreter virtually that does a great job in interpreting both sides. So that's what we're using, along with student support when it's in less formal setting.
All right, anyone who hasn't had a question or comment have one that they want to make? Maryann, thank you so much for your time and your presentation. We appreciate it. On your way out, I'll just sort of echo one of the things that I caught in here, which was the recommendation is for 90 minutes. So we have a student new to our community and district with limited English language, and the recommendation is only to support them for an hour and a half a day. And currently, we can only support them for an hour a day. So pretty stark. Did I get that right?
Day or a week?
Sorry, week. Is it 90 minutes a day or 90 minutes a week?
Sorry, it's 90 minutes a day.
90 minutes a day. Okay. Did I say week or did I say day?
You said day.
Okay. Either way, it's not. If I had to go somewhere where English wasn't the spoken language primarily, I would be in trouble with just 90 minutes a day of support. So. Exactly. All right, moving on to our ongoing business. So the first item on our ongoing business is an update on our school committee communication goal. We were hoping that we could come and sort of give some feedback on how the Acton Oktoberfest went. I hear it was muddy, so much so that they didn't have it. But the new date is confirmed for October 14th, and we'll need some support again in setting up and attending our little booth there. So I'll send out an email to get some folks to sign up. People who were available are not going to be available. People are in and out of town, so we do need to get some people to be at our booth. It starts at 10. I'm going to handle the setup because if it's like it was originally planned, setup happens at around 7:38 in the morning. And so we'll need some folks there from 10 to 12, 11:30 to 2, 1:30 to 3:30 to help with the takedown. So mark your calendar for October 14th. If you do have some time available, we would appreciate the help for that. I think that's pretty much where we're at on our communication goal right now. And does anybody else have any other items that they're thinking about in terms of what they've been working towards? The big one was to be at Oktoberfest. The next one is to sort of, as we're coming up on making some votes and some decisions, we want some folks to be able to put a summary together of some of the justification and the deliberation behind those decisions so that when we're out in public, we've got something we can share with the public when they've got questions. Okay. We're going to move on to subcommittee reports, subcommittee member reports. Policy subcommittee, Liz is not here, but I think, Leela, you said you could share a brief update on what policy met about.
So the policy subcommittee met on September 28th, and we fleshed out kind of a calendar of meetings for the upcoming year and discussed possible options for our work in the upcoming school year. And our next meeting is October 17th, bright and early at 7:30 in the morning.
Thank you. Health Insurance Trust, Yan Shen.
I am Andrew's alternate, so I'm gonna give you guys the summary that he wrote. We were both at the HIP meeting this morning. Acton's Health Insurance Trust voted today to contract with Aetna for administration of Medicare Advantage or Medicare Part C health insurance. This move will expand the level of services to our subscribers, lower individual costs, and lower costs to the trust. The change will save the town of Acton, the Health Insurance Trust, and its subscribers approximately $466,000. That's the end.
Thank you. Budget Subcommittee. So I think, Rebeccah, you're going to go through some, and Peter's going to, while Becca gives us an update, Peter's going to get the schedule up on the big screen for us.
All right. The Budget Subcommittee met on Monday, October 2nd at 3:30 on Zoom and discussed the schedule for creating the FY25 budget as well as drafting the guidelines for the subcommittee priorities. We again discussed how we're looking at a difficult budget year. At this time, a lot of work is being done to investigate all aspects of the budget and connect with leadership in the two towns so that we know all pertinent information. We are focused on maintaining our obligations to all students in the district as well as ensuring transparency and fiscal responsibility in our budgeting efforts. We are committed to doing right by all stakeholders, which includes the students and families, staff, and taxpayers. Next meeting will be October 16th at 3:30 p.m. on Zoom.
Thank you. Peter, so you've got a bit of an overview of our budget development calendar to share.
Yeah, so I sent you an early draft in your emails, just as the meeting was starting up, but I wanted to show you kind of the latest working draft. One of the pieces of feedback from our budget subcommittee was asking us to, in addition to tracking what the budget subcommittee would be working on, meeting by meeting basis, to also put in what the school committee should expect. I think one of the reasons why we're so focused on this is as we start to get an early picture of this budget, we, have a really solid understanding that, the revenue sources as they exist now are woefully inadequate to being able to sustain the quality and breadth of education that we've been providing for a long time at AB. And I just can't say that strongly enough, that we are, certainly going to enter another challenging budget cycle, probably more so than the previous challenges we've had, and they've been increasing over time. This is going to be, some really significant work on the part of both the budget subcommittee, the administration, and the school committee. So we put this together in an effort to be really clear and transparent about what to expect along the way. Just on a meeting basis. I'm not going to obviously go through all of this for you, but you can see, the budget subcommittee dates, the school committee dates, what the budget subcommittee agenda focus will be and what the school committee agenda focus will be. We'll certainly send you a PDF of this, and if you have comments, you can either share them maybe with either Becca who's chairing the budget subcommittee, or me, and we can continue to work to refine this schedule. But we are going to want to probably bring this back to you at the next meeting and finalize it so that we can get moving on budget. We are also preparing to meet with our leadership team and start putting out, budget request forms and things like that to all of our principals. So, budget season officially, kicking off here. One of the things I will say we're also trying to do is to be able to, normally we don't really roll our expenses and revenues forward for the following year until probably, I'm going to say, late November. Or even into December. We've actually started doing that now, and we're at the point where we're actually just refining those numbers and honing in to make sure, they're as accurate as early numbers can be, because we actually think it's going to be important to give the school committee and budget subcommittee really good, clear picture of what the revenue sources look like and what the expenses are going to look like, and then, what the distance between those two numbers looks like, so that we can be thoughtful about next steps. So happy to answer any questions on this, but you'll be getting a copy. We always do say all of the votes that you see in here, and I'm probably going to leave them in red, are calculated based on, the regional agreement and dates that we need to have votes before the town meetings. So those are pretty key dates to keep in mind.
Can you roll back up to the top, Peter? I guess I have one question or comment already, which is, you've got us voting the budget timeline, or we have us voting the budget timeline on November 2nd, which is actually 2 meetings from now. And I wonder if that one item we should pull up one school committee meeting. I think we still want the extra time for the guidelines, because I think the subcommittee needs to deliberate that some more. But I would give the committee advance notice now that we're looking at the timelines now, and in 2 weeks we're going to want to vote that timeline. I think we should bring that forward.
So I think any feedback that you have, the sooner the better, so that we can make the revisions and bring that back.
Any other questions or comments on the guidelines? Like Peter said, they're in your email, so please feel free to send that to Peter and Rebecca. Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to our consent agenda. Before I go into all of the text that I read regarding the consent agenda, I'm going to highlight the fact that the next item, which is the statements of warrants and recommendation to approve, there are 2 separate memos that we need to review, so I'll ask for 2 separate members to prepare to read one of those memo documents. As I review with you that the items on the consent agenda do not usually require discussion and are approved with 1 vote unless a member would like to hold an item for discussion and a separate vote. I'll read each of the 2 items that are on this list, and please do say hold if you'd like one of them held. And as a reminder, you don't have to have attended a meeting to vote on the minutes. So item number 1, approval of ABRSC meeting minutes of 9/21/2023. And item number 2, approval of a new junior high student activity club, Dungeons and Dragons. Hearing nobody holding or expressing excitement about either of those items, I'll ask for all of those to vote in favor. Please say aye. 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 Any opposed or abstentions? No one made the motion. I was
so moved.
Thanks, Beth.
Second.
That's Beth and Yenshin. Everybody in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yes, and you made the second.
You call Beth.
Sorry. Beth. Tori made the motion. Yenshin seconded.
Beth understood me.
Beth was reading my mind. So I am now going to sit back and let somebody else make a motion for some warrants. There are 2 sets, so can someone please make a motion for the warrants dated 9/21/2023? Becca, please.
I move that the school committee vote to approve the below-listed warrants totaling $3,738,570.97. AP vendor warrant as follows: 24-005B, dated 9/7/2023, and the amount of $387,988.68. Payroll vendor warrant as follows: 24-005PR, dated 9/7/2023, in the amount of $565,264.36. Payroll warrant as follows: P2405, dated 9/7/2023, in the amount of $2,772,685.53. Student activity warrant as follows, 24-005JH, dated 9/7/2023, in the amount of $12,632.40.
Ben seconded that. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? None. Somebody want to read the other memo?
I move that the school committee vote to approve the below-listed warrants totaling $5,502,311.20. AP vendor warrants as follows. 24-006A, dated 9/14/2023, in the amount of $659,242.02. Vendor warrant 24-006B, dated September 21st, 2023, in the amount of $482,553.38. Payroll vendor warrants as follows. 24-006PR, dated September 21st, 2023, in the amount of $1,209,032.61. And lastly, payroll warrants as follows. P2406, dated September 21st, 2023, in the amount of $3,151,483.19.
Seconded.
That was Rebeccah who seconded it. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? None. Thank you all. Peter, is there anything on the FYI that you want to highlight?
Just like to call your attention to the CASE first quarter report. CASE stands for Concord Area Special Education Collaborative. Collaborative are groups of districts that have banded together to provide services for students who have IEPs that might need services beyond the traditional school day. So when we send you CASE reports, it's just important that as school committee members, you understand that we are CASE. I actually sit on the board of CASE Collaborative. So I'm on the CASE board, much like you're on the school committee, and that's my role with the CASE Collaborative. But we do have students from our district placed into all of the CASE classrooms, and it's just, they do some remarkable programming for students with disabilities, and we'd just like to draw your attention to that because the collaboratives are very, very important to the school districts and want to make sure you're aware of how we function within those.
Thanks, Peter. And then I'll just send the committee a reminder. Julie did ask you all to fill out a form that pertains to collecting some information for our ABRHS radio station. So if you haven't filled out that form, please do so. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Ben?
Second.
Second for Vikram. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. Thank you all. Have a great night.